Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again to the first coffee talk of this year. We're very excited. We're going to be talking about very exciting topics, and we have a stellar speakers joining us today. We're going to be talking, the coffee talk today is going to be talking about driving trends in digital transformation. The speakers are going to talk about the impact of disruptive technologies and how we should be better prepared for the future. A little commercials, the coffee talk will be recorded so we can post it and share it afterwards. And please don't forget to write your questions on the Q&A icon on the toolbar below your screen. We're going to be looking forward to those questions. With that, we should start with the coffee talk. Today, I am joined by three very successful and stellar speakers. First and foremost, Fabricio Soto. Fabricio has over 20 years of experience working with multinationals in areas like talent management, finance, commercial operations, and digital marketing. He's currently the managing director for Accenture Costa Rica, an operation with more than 2,200 full-time employees, becoming one of the largest service operation companies in the country and the first of its industry. Fabricio is Costa Rican born and very family oriented. Second, we are joined by Eric van der Laat. Eric is currently the VP of Operations and Western Union Costa Rica site lead, an operation with over 1,300 employees locally. With over 24 years of experience working with global companies, 13 of those with Western Union, Eric also leads the Customer Support Service Unit, an operation focused on driving operational experience, continuous improvement, and professional growth of the operation. Eric also enjoys playing tennis in his free time, as well as investing time with his wife and 2 kids. And last but not least, René Zuleta. René is the managing director at Wunderman Thompson, Costa Rica, an operation with over 180 employees with a strong focus on technology delivery. He has over 17 years of experience successfully developing, managing, and delivering digital solutions for customers across different industries. Since 2020, René serves as the regional CTO for LATAM at Wunderman Thompson, focusing on leading technology teams and building the CTO office for the region. René is also a father of 2 teens. He enjoys outdoors with his wife and kids and learning jiu-jitsu. And without further ado, I will hand over the microphone to you, Fabricio.
Thank you, Paula. And what a pleasure to be here today. And we're very excited to participate in the new chapter of CINDE's Coffee Talk. This time it's around digital trends and all the thriving trends that we're seeing in all the digital transformation, which is a great opportunity for us to present our Accenture technology vision for 2021. And it's actually the 21st year that we keep doing this. And when we look back, we see a lot of accuracy and all the different trends that we're seeing. So today we would like to start with the technology vision. But before we jump right into the trends, I think it's worth spending a minute just in the context of the world around us. So if we go to the first slide, we're going to see on the screen some images that reminds us of what we've been experiencing during the past year. Not too long ago, we were talking about the Brexit. And then we were discussing around the Australian wildfires, causing concern and discussion around the warming of the planet. Then geopolitical tension around the world, including China, US, Iran, North Korea. Definitely a lot of events coming in new ways and in new forms of conflict. But then, boom, COVID-19 hit. Unprecedented disruption, catastrophic health consequences, personal implications, and personal real consequences for all of us. So you look at all these, you're gonna see a picture of volatility and uncertainty. But when we think how to better understand this, there is definitely a new mindset that it's required. And that mindset, it's about how COVID hit a giant fast forward button. It's a button that has fast forwarded us into a future at a new pace. Literally, we're living 10 years of transformation compressed into 1 or 2 years. And we did a research that right before the pandemic, that the companies which were the 10% of the leaders in any given industry who were using technology more effectively outperformed the rest of their competitors by a factor of 2x. But there is definitely a digital achievement gap. The digital achievement gap now, when we fast forwarded with that huge bottom of the COVID, the gap completely widened. Right now, that 10% of the leaders are outperforming their competitors by 5 times. This is a stark reality and a stark realization for many companies to better understand where we are and what's the environment around us. Moving on. All this is bringing a moment of truth as we try to confront where we are. Leaders now need to rely on the talent, like the talent that we have in Costa Rica, to build a better future, to master change in a moment of truth, and to rethink how we're doing our businesses. And that's basically why today we're going to be bringing you the 5 trends that we're seeing during 2021. And we would like to color them on the next slide to better understand how Costa Rica is playing a critical role on those 5 trends. But again, remember one more time, we fast forward and we compress 10 years of transformation in just 1 or 2 years. So instead of focusing on what happened, we should focus on a generation opportunity to reimagine the businesses that we have. Okay, so now let's go into the first trend that we're seeing, and it's called stack strategically, architecting a better future. What does this actually mean? Well, technology is very important, but it's not about the outcome of the technology, what we need to focus on, but how we develop the technology and specifically the architecture strategically for us to do business. And this is why we see a lot of C-level leadership, board of directors caring about how the technology is being built and it's being architected. And on the screen, we see a clear example and a very relevant example with a pharmaceutical and biotech company, Moderna. Moderna was one of the first companies that came up with a vaccine. But if we try to dig under the cover and we try to know what actually happened, we're going to better understand that besides having good studies and good science around messenger RNA, they also had a new approach that was actually brought into life with a drug design studio, empowered by cloud, artificial intelligence, neural networks, iteration in different models, rapid experimentation, results. I mean, data all over the place, but data that was actually paired and networked with scientists. In other words, they had everything required to operate technology at unprecedented speed to produce a new vaccine quickly. So we are the ones being benefit for that. This is clearly a great example of how the stack and the architecture is what actually matters and what is really shaping the future. So as you think of the architecture, let's focus on the data, on the cloud, on artificial intelligence, on how we're capitalizing on the experience layer. And that's what really mean by stack strategically and the role of it going forward. Now, moving to the next slide. Mirror world. We're going to be deep diving on this one, but basically what we're saying is how we're bringing digital computerized twins that mirror the physical world, and how are the intelligent bots moving from simulation into operations, creating value impact. We're going to spend some minutes here with Western Union and with Wunderman Thompson to better understand how they're applying mirror world in their reality. But analysts forecast today that the spend and the investment on digital twinning will increase from $3 billion today to $35 billion in just a few years. That's a shocking 10-fold increase. And that's exactly what we see on the horizon. Now, if we move to the third trend, this is what we call I technologies, which is around the democratization of technology. Why democratization of technology? Well, because today every business is a digital business, and there is no doubt around that. Remember, we fast forward a decade in just 1 or 2 years. So if every business today is a digital business, then that means that every person needs to know technology and needs to be fluent in technology. That's why computer literacy, like the high and the internet penetration, like we do in Costa Rica, it's critical and it's key for everyone's success. In our company, for example, we have more than 530,000 people today, and we put a program in place that is called TQ, Technology Quotient. That program is for us to better understand the technology and prepare ourselves for the future of work. And that's what it's been key for every company to drive the future. We need to think different ways on how we're equipping our people, how we're bringing them new tools to overall empower people with technology. And then when we go to the fourth trend, it's around everywhere, anywhere, and bring your own environment. And notice that I'm saying bring your own environment. I'm not saying bring your own device, because bringing your own device, it's definitely part of it, but it's much more broader. And how we empower people to work on this new way with a role of technology and how we're doing it. It has to do about how we're creating a culture around people in the work environment. It's about securing these new ways, how we're bringing cybersecurity threats to none through the zero trust security. And as an example, we are doing that today. As you see on the screen, we are using virtual reality and augmented reality not only to onboard employees for us and for our clients, but also we're using them for remote factories and plant inspections for a person to do those inspections, those audits from their home, from their office, and even from a beachfront property rental place here in Costa Rica. So we're definitely creating a new future that happens anywhere, everywhere. And again, this is a very different environment and context around it. Now we will move to the last trend. It's around from me to we. And what is about it? Well, it's a multi-party system path through chaos. What does that really mean? Well, the future is about more complex ecosystems, because right now we have a very complex ecosystem to solve the big problems we're facing as a humanity. Think about carbon tracking, think about the broad health and healthcare system, think about supply chains, circular supply chains. This is going to involve multi-parties working together. And it's time for us to use these multi-party systems and connect them through blockchain, through distributed ledgers. And this is what really requires us to do in order to do an impact. For example, you're seeing on the screen a circular supply chain forum that Accenture is part of, where we're working with many organizations and with farmers, like you see on the screen. From farmers to the end customer, we're tracking absolutely everything, from the origination of a coffee bean to how it gets served in our coffees. And how we're tracing that, how we're bringing sustainability, and how we're making sure the distribution is equitable, really benefiting the entire value chain. So in that last slide, you're gonna see the 5 trends, basically, because we need leaders today, leaders that master the change and that are really taking advantage of this moment of truth on how they're using these trends and how we're gonna move forward. And we shouldn't be waiting for the trends to be built, but we are building those trends in our companies, in our society. And with further ado, I want to appreciate everyone for listening to these trends, but now we gotta listen how we're applying those trends in Costa Rica. And for that, we have Western Union, like I mentioned, and Wunderman Thompson that are gonna bring these trends to life and how we're doing that here from Costa Rica. Thanks, Eric van der Laat. Thanks, Rene Zuleta, for joining us today. And I have a question for you guys. Probably we can start participating and making this more bilateral. So Eric, first question for you. Eric, we see how the trends of the mirror world are thriving businesses through technologies and also using intelligence around it. But how are you guys driving it in the financial industry? And more specifically, how are you guys driving it in Western Union?
Thank you, Fabricio. And before I start, let me thank CINDE for building up these spaces to share best practices and to continually learn from each other. Very interesting to see all the trends that you just laid out. And again, thank you for the opportunity to share with you a case story that it covers pretty much everything you were talking about, the mirror world. This story actually goes back. This has been a journey. Let me start with that because it's a never-ending journey. And we started about maybe 10 or 12 years ago when we were trying to gain a positioning in the digital spectrum. So a little bit of context, Western Union is in the business of moving money from point A to point B. And the business was highly retail as we consider it. It was individuals going to an agent location, putting money over the counter, and then Western Union would make sure that that money would go all the way to their receivers in the other end of the world. But it was still a very physical process, so to speak, presential. So we, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we wanted to get big on the digital side, and we saw one big obstacle, which is, or was, we didn't necessarily understand the behaviors of our digital customers. So that's when we started to connect with the human beings, with top performers in Costa Rica. We created a proof of concept. And initially, this proof of concept was a two-pronged approach. One, it was really understanding the needs of the digital customer, is understanding who they are, how can we validate their identity, how can we make sure that they're really utilizing our systems for legit purposes and everything that comes around it. And the second thing was to save some dollars because our system was very rigid and it was just built to either approve or decline a transaction. But whenever we had any particular kind of like a gray area, we started this proof of concept through top performers that help us understand what these customers look like. What are the type of questions that we need to ask? What type of information do we need to get next to ensure that we can let certain transactions go through without augmenting our risk or circumventing any of the compliance procedures? What we learned is that there was a very viable market, and very soon right after that, we started to build the rules and the logic to help the system decision in a better way. So over the last 10 years, what we've been doing is really strengthening the logic over time so that when we identify new customer patterns, when we identify new needs, we are constantly testing this new lines of business so that we can help the company in its expansion and most importantly, ensure that we give a better customer experience. One thing that we've been doing is really connecting the systems and the people. The systems are gonna get stronger. They're gonna help us process things faster. But this is gonna come with the intelligence that comes from the human capital. So we can never forget that in order to make magic, as we call it, we must ensure a close working relationship between the systems and with the people. What we've done is that we've created this strategic pillars, which is we have the execution, and our execution is going to help us deliver against the expectation. But we need to make sure that we are constantly plugging in the innovation venue so that we're continually improving, leaning on different tools, be it automated or lean tools, to ensure that we're constantly delivering a better customer experience. In short, what I want to focus maybe for the day today is our journey for the last 5 or 4 years. And I put together a little slide, and if we can pull it up, this is going to help me tell the story much better, because if we look at this, over the last 4 years, we have been able to we are conquering the digital world. We're transforming our retail customers over to become more digitally oriented. success stories here is that line that you see there declining is basically how we have been making the process more efficient. Initially, when we got this process off the ground, the system was probably approving 80 to 85% of the transactions. The approving or declining, it was decisioning on 85% of the transactions. The other 15% was being referred over to our manual investigation team. So what we've been doing is that over the course of the years, we've been building better logic to ensure that the customers can be approved right from the source without having to come through a manual investigations team. So we are improving that experience. For the last 4 years only, there's been a total of 3.2 million customers that have not been served manually because we have built that logic in the system. So it's a better customer experience. We see that they come back more often. And if anything, it's the type of story that we want to have. So as you can see, there's been a big transformation, and in very, very short, we moved in 2017, the digital business from just being a 7% of the total revenue to closing the year very close to $850 million or 15% of the total revenue. So with that, Fabricio, I hope this helps answer the question for the forum. Let me pass it back to you.
Thank you, Eric, and definitely that's a great story. I'm glad that you guys are capturing the new customer behavior, enhancing their experience, and at the same time mirroring the world through innovation, through technology, and making sure that it's across all levels within the organization. Thanks for that, Eric. And now, Rene, we would love to hear. I mean, your company does a lot of client experience, a lot of commerce. It will be amazing to hear what is Wunderman Thompson, and specifically from Costa Rica, doing around this mirror world.
Perfect. Thank you, Fabricio. Our office in Costa Rica focuses on delivering technology services mainly to our offices in North America. And within this trend of the mirror world, there's a lot of discussions around the creation of big amounts of data, and how can we use tools such as machine learning or artificial intelligence to support the opportunity of using all of this data and whatnot. So one of the examples that I want to show how we use this on a client, although we're using artificial intelligence to support many of our internal processes, just like Eric just showed some examples with them, like improving our quality of software code and whatnot. This is a campaign that we worked on that I feel very proud. One of the things that we were looking is at how social media has given rise to unprecedented levels of hate speech in the public discourse. So we were discussing internally, how can we use these same tools of social media to help stop the spread of hate speech? And what we realized is that we could use artificial intelligence to identify and process hate speech in a way that we could help the people who were putting out this type of discourse. They could either stop spreading or just stop publishing that kind of content. For this, we use different tools. And maybe if you can move to the next slide, please. And what we did is by integrating tools such as IBM Watson and Google and Spreadfast, we would identify hate speech using machine learning, then reply to that tweet explaining that to the person who was publishing that tweet, that for every retweet that was generated, we will be making a donation to the Life After Hate nonprofit organization, which they dedicate to rehabilitating former white supremacists. So what we saw during this process is that not only that spread of these tweets, will decrease by almost 50%, but also in many cases, the person who was publishing the tweet was deleting the tweet after all. So what we saw during that just a short period of sometimes was that there was a pretty measurable impact on the decrease of hate speech spreading throughout Twitter. This is all through all of the now improvements that we are seeing through machine learning and artificial intelligence in everything that relates to understanding and identifying speech and how people just write. So it's very interesting.
Thank you, Rene. That's a great story. And you talk about data, you talk about artificial intelligence, you talk about a lot of different technology that we gotta democratize. And that probably brings us to the next question, and it's around the next trend, which is AI technologies. And I would love to hear from you, and I think that the audience as well. What is the role of Wunderman Thompson, and specifically from the team of Costa Rica, around the data democratization, technology democratization, and how we're bringing it to life? I know that you guys are bringing it with high tech to every single client, but can you give us a few examples here?
Sure. So one of the things that we see in technology is, and especially with many of these opportunities of using artificial intelligence tools, is that, as you're saying, that democratization comes in a way where you need less of people that are very fluent in creating code, and they just need to be familiar on how to use this data in a much more user-friendly ways. So one of the examples that I would like to share with you is work that we've done for Japan Airlines, where there was a big challenge with them where they were just using a lot of data sources, close to more than 20 data sources from other areas, sales data that were coming from 2017. And originally, some of our team here in Costa Rica that is related to analytics and managing of data, they were using Tableau, and the request was for them to help them improve some reports that they were going to be doing. However, there was a big opportunity to use other tools that, such as Datorama, that includes artificial intelligence and other very user-friendly scripts and technologies, so that these people who are not really developers, they could work on, but they have a good understanding of data. They could work with the client from here to define a lot of data structures, a lot of how they will harmonize and use all of this data, and use the tool of Datorama. Maybe you can, next slide, please. Where by just using Datorama and including all of these data sources, they could simplify the process and management of all of this data in order to create very insightful reports for the client. So one way that I saw this internally, as I was mentioning, is that the people that were working on this project here were not really developers. They were just people that are really very focused on the analysis of data and whatnot, and they're very proficient on that. They were not really developers. So I think it's a way that you can see now more and more how people that can, these tools, and by making them more user-friendly, we're seeing the barriers for people to use and make and create new things with technology is getting we're getting more people to do that.
That's awesome, and you said it well, in the sense that it's got to be barrier-free technology. We got to make it user-friendly. That's a fact. And Eric, I remember you sharing with us a success story around Western Union and how you're driving innovation and how is that actually increasing employee engagement across all levels, right? It's not only top bottom, but actually it's across all levels. So I'm going to share with the audience that case and the importance of the role that the national team, Costa Rica, it's playing within innovation and AI technologists.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So one example that comes to mind is the adoption of RPA, robotics process automation. So when we first started with this topic, there was this natural fear coming from everyone, probably because of all the headlines around the world that robotics is replacing humans, robotics is taking over. And there was this natural fear from everyone that this is one action from the company to downsize, to get more efficient through laying off people. And if anything, that posed a different type of challenge. But once we overcome that challenge of communication and really understanding and aligning everyone that this is for the betterment of the organization and not necessarily pursuing by itself a financial target, we were actually able to automate so many different processes that I've lost count as of now. We started with the proof of concept just 5 years ago, maybe, and we have over 100 robots operating fully across Western Union globally today. So, the way that we've been looking at this is that the robotics became an extension of our personnel. It became an extension of myself in my role, because now I can leverage and interact with the different pieces of technology in a different way. I can break down a process from a 10-step process into just passing the first 2 things to the robot, then I do the next things, then I pass it again to another system. So what we've seen is that by removing this fear concept and really articulating or presenting this as what it is, which is a mechanism to get more efficient and to really design these systems in the way that are meaningful to your needs. It's when we created this grassroots and innovation. Every single employee in our organization is empowered and encouraged to bring ideas, to solution, and to find better ways. So of course, technology is a critical part of it. But one thing that we've seen is that after the adoption of technology, we've seen an increase in our employee engagement. Because what we did is that we took away the mundane, the non-value added, the routinary things that nobody really wants to do. We have very highly educated people that they want to really apply their knowledge, and copying and pasting, as we say, is not necessarily a best use of their time. So removing all of those non-value added functions actually work towards the employee engagement, as people are very connected with what they need to do with the customer and empowered to bring those solutions to life.
That's great, Eric. And we actually shared exactly the same vision. I think that nobody should come to work or should start working from home or from wherever they are to do the things every day. That should be about, and we should definitely be moving the employees to higher value add activities. So that's great. No, and that's a great segue for the last trend that we're going to be seeing today. And it goes around anywhere, everywhere. And Eric, probably we can continue with you now that you got the microphone. And we are now entering the last trend, which is, again, it's anywhere, everywhere, and how we're focusing on building a post-COVID world, how we are building the future and not waiting for the future to come to us. But I see your company having new behaviors, people having new behaviors, how it's actually Western Union dealing with the anywhere, everywhere experience through the lenses, not only of the employees, but of the customers as well.
Great, thanks for the question. Let me start by saying that we still have a lot of unknowns as the future continues to unfold, but this is the beauty of being in a role where you have to be constantly adapting to change. So just as anybody else, the first challenge that we embraced was moving people to work from home. And this is when the first myth was kind of destroyed. I was one of those individuals personally that thought that if you have to be servicing customers, you must be in the office because of all the connections, the technology, sound quality, so on and so forth. I was proven wrong once again, that truly people want to they want to service our customers, and they really have their commitment, and they made it happen. We had some challenges at the beginning, but we adjusted. Technology has been an ally with us during this last year, and now we can say that we move from working from home to working remotely. Our employees are really taking advantage of this opportunity to serve their customers better. And it has also helped us look at things from a different angle. And all of this is happening because of the people. The people is making all of these changes happen. We couldn't stop hiring individuals. We are a 1,300 employee large organization. So we had to continue with our hiring processes. So we had to move to virtual onboardings. So from Costa Rica, we piloted the global onboarding, and it became kind of like the model to follow for the rest of the company. We also had to move over to virtual trainings for our new hires. We have to move to virtual development for our top performers. So if anything, 2020 opened up a whole new array of challenges, but also of opportunities. And now we can say that we need to really understand how this is going to land, or how the pieces will fall. But it's very interesting to see how we can look at the talent from a whole different perspective. We don't necessarily have to be all of us together in the same room to make that greatness occur.
That's great, Eddie. Thank you for that. And Renee, we would also like to hear from you. What about Wunderman Thompson? Have you guys reimagined the return to office experience at all?
So just as many companies in Costa Rica, we were very quickly able to start moving everyone to work from home. In our case, the fact that pretty much 99% of the work that we do is for North America or other countries, we had already a culture of people working remotely, and so it was very easy for us to transition to that model. What we are seeing as a global company, and from what we hear from other regions, definitely we're going to be moving into a model where I can see the majority of the people from our office work the majority of their time remotely. However, people want to come to the office every now and then for a specific meeting. So, you know, have the option of, if there's anything happening at home, they need to have an important meeting or transfer big files or something that they need to come to the office, they can do so. We're going to be moving to a model probably of what some people call hot desking or desk booking, you know, so that people book the time where they can go into the office, and that's something that we've seen that is working very well for us. At the moment, we have all the protocols and everything according to our internal requirements in the company, but also within the government requirements and we've done some improvements and changes on the physical office to prepare for a potential return of some employees. We do not have a timeline for that. We don't foresee anything before July or August, at least, where we start maybe at certain % of people coming in. But what we can see is that definitely this model of working is here to stay. It's been also interesting to see how some clients react. We have a client in particular based out of San Francisco, where they've always historically been very strict on wanting the people that work with them in-house. And so it's always been very difficult from a logistics standpoint for us to provide more people for them. However, with this, they had to adapt to that. And now that they're starting to maybe return to their office, we can see that they're more open to having people working remotely because they saw that it worked for them. And that's been opening more opportunities for us to maybe help them with more people, right? Which we could have done just before, when we had to send physically people to work there. That obviously has a lot of logistics challenge to that. So I think that's where we're heading. Obviously, is very important, besides just the fact that the usual things of having people access with tools and equipment, the right connectivity and all of that. I think one of the things that we're putting a lot of attention is also into other aspects of what means for the people to be working remotely, having more attention, putting more attention to psychological aspect of that, making sure that people have all of the support that they need for this type of model.
That's great, Rene, and definitely we gotta care about our employees, our number one asset, and of course, I think that the beauty of being in Costa Rica is that we have a very biodiverse environment that help us stay whole, right? So I think that we would like to hear from the audience in terms, probably we can do a quick poll and hear from the audience, which of these trends it's the most important in your company or in your industry. I think that we can see the results here live because we have more than 100 companies joining us today, and I would love to see which ones are the ones more important in your company or in your industry. We clearly did a focus on 3 of them because of the interest of time, but definitely the 5 of them are trends that we're seeing on the near future. Okay, we're gonna give here a few more time to see the results. All righty, let's see. Let's see the results. There you go. Anywhere, everywhere in the first place. Yeah, definitely. We're in a new environment. We're in a new world. It's bringing a lot of different skills required for us to navigate this new reality. But yeah, it's no surprise that anywhere, everywhere is the number one. Then we see IT technologists, and IT technologists, it's critical for us to ensure we are bringing democracy into the technology and how we use the technology. And then we also see how we're architecting the future. That's very interesting because we have a tie between stack strategically, how we're architecting and planning the technology and how we're going to be using, and from me to we, the multi-party system chaos. That's awesome. Then we can probably do another question. We have two questions to go. One more to go. Okay, so we know everyone is doing automation here, but what percentage of your company would you say it's currently being automated? This is a very interesting one because we'll talk about RPA, we'll talk about data, we'll talk about innovation, but it will be interesting to see what percentage of your company is being automated as of today. Remember, we are compressing 10 years, 1 decade of digital transformation in just 1 or 2 years. So I expect the numbers here to look much better than a year ago. We're gonna give a few more seconds here. There you go, 21 to 50%. That's awesome. Actually, as you saw on the digital gap that we see, it was 2 times and now it's 5 times. So I would assume that 1 year ago, the vast majority of the responses will come in 0 to 20% range. Now looking at the 21 and 50% range, it's very, very promising. So congratulations for that and your industries. That's awesome. Well, we want to leave some time for Q&A to hear from you guys as well. But probably before we jump into that, we can see a last slide that we prepared today. And it's basically a Chinese proverb that I really like and that I think that we all are mastering today because today we're all masters of change. So when I read this quote, then I think about that when the winds of change blow, some people build walls, others build windmills. And we have an exciting future ahead of us. It's a future of human empowerment and human potential, working with technology in new ways, solving the biggest problems of the world in an intrinsic world that we're living today, right? So I think that when using an approach of windmills, not walls, and thinking differently as we deal with it, will bring new realities and will make a better life and will make a better world. So hopefully that's our mindset, and we're living that here from Costa Rica, and we want to make sure that other companies join us on this philosophy as well. So with that, Paula, I think that we're ready for some Q&A. Probably we can spend the next 10 minutes just answering some of the questions that have come our way.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. It was an absolute, I learned a lot. I hope everyone that has joined us also learn a lot. Very interesting what the polls told us, anywhere, everywhere. That's very interesting. And I'm wondering if the pandemic had a lot to do with that. Renee, I'm going to ask you the first question. You guys have experience delivering solutions for customers across different industries. And Andrea asks, what do those trends mean to local small, medium businesses?
So I think what we're seeing is that, especially when we think of tools like democratization is the one that I can think the most, is that many of these technologies are becoming much more available to small, medium business than before. So in the past, you would think that you need big investments and very expensive tools. However, there's a lot of companies creating very accessible versions of their, maybe enterprise versions of their software or whatnot for small, medium tools. The other thing is that you can see much more young people, especially here in Costa Rica. And in our case, the medium age of our staff maybe is around 30 to 35. And you can see how many of these very young people are much more used to learning on their own. They're very much more familiar to a lot of online training tools. There's a lot of options now. CINDE is one that has been helping a lot to the local companies have more access to a lot of online training tools and whatnot. So what you can see is that before it would be very expensive and maybe something that was just accessible for big enterprise. And now what we can see is that many of these technologies and tools are much more accessible to smaller companies. There's also a lot of independent consultants supporting and focusing on helping small businesses take advantage of many of these tools. So this is what I think this is a great opportunity now.
I agree. And I have to say, from the digital technology sector, we see every day how new small, medium companies are now big players in the digital arena. I'm going to say, where many years ago, we only knew of 10 big companies and we didn't know much about any other. So thank you. And I absolutely agree with everything you said. We have another very interesting question, and I'm going to ask you, Eric, since you are from Western Union, it has to do with data. And it says data's value has been compared to the value of oil in all times. So how should data privacy be handled?
Thank you for that question. And I couldn't agree more with that statement. Data is one of the most sensitive things that we're managing today. In our business in particular, if you can imagine, we're capturing a lot of information from our customers that are sensitive. That data cannot be floating around. It's not accessible to everyone. We have strict protocols to retain and safeguard all of that information, as the law dictates in the different areas of the world. We have to rely on technology to ensure that we are adhering to the local laws and regulations. Something as simple as this, for example, that in Italy, for example, if you're reaching out to a customer, you cannot just, and if you're not based in Europe, you need to let them know that the call is originated from a place outside of Europe. And if they don't feel comfortable, we need to transfer them to a local operator and the call has to be taken from there. So this is, I mean, it's really understanding all the nuances around the different jurisdictions and how do we retain and maintain that information safe. The other thing is this is what we're doing with the data from a system perspective, but on the people front, we are constantly educating everyone, every single level of the organization. We go through cybersecurity trainings to data privacy trainings. We are being constantly fed and informed about how we need to maintain this information. So cybersecurity is a must in a digital environment, and it's something that we are taking very, very seriously, and of course, always with the customer in mind.
Very true. And if I can bring that to Costa Rica, we see now, we from CINDE and the multinational point of view, we now see how more companies are integrating or including as part of their services in Costa Rica, cybersecurity, security operations. And I think that goes along with what you're saying. Thank you so much, Eric. I have one question for you, Fabricio, and going back to anywhere, everywhere. Humberto asks, when thinking about anywhere, everywhere, and from an internal company perspective, how do you build culture, create sense of belonging, and drive a consistent company team identity with a workforce that may be 100% virtual? That is a good challenge for companies.
It is a good challenge, and I'm glad that it's the same challenge worldwide, right? It's not specific to Costa Rica. However, what is specific to Costa Rica, it's not only our closeness, right? Everything is short distance, but at the same time, how we're leveraging technology tools to make it happen. Today, we see a lot of businesses that are digital business. And we saw that on the trend number 3, right? About technologies. Every business is a technology business. But at the same time, how we're equipping our people to make sure that they know the technology and that they have digital and technology fluency. Because through technology, we are able to bring one virtual environment regardless of where we are. And that's the new ways of working, right? That's how we got to think different on how we're equipping our people, how we're bringing these new tools to life. We're doing happy hours, we're doing happy events. We used to have, well, we still do, but it's not being used, a facility just for wellness. But now we're having exactly the same wellness professors, coaches, and teachers doing virtual classes to our people. But guess what? Now it's not our people, the ones that are joining the classes. It's our resources and their families. So it's bringing even their new environments, that it's their family, into their work environment. And that brings culture, that brings appreciation, that brings employee engagement. So that's how we're leveraging technology. That's how we're bringing this to life, and basically trying to change our mindset. Sometimes I talk to my colleagues and I tell them, look, it's no different than when companies have 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings. And it's no different that where multinational companies they have operations in 10, 20, 40, 50 different countries in the world. How do they call one single company? And it's through virtuality, through technology. So we're definitely leveraging technology for that, making sure that we are thinking on the new work environment. It's not about being at the office, it's about being present and making sure that they have a close relationship with the company. We have a lot of co-creation sessions and a lot of tools that we're doing for design thinking, and making sure that we spend some time together, even through a happy hour. Today with a coffee mug, right? We're all together on this one and enjoying exactly the same space, but in a virtual environment. That's basically how we're dealing, how we're approaching it, and making sure that there is always a digital mindset on top of that.
Thank you. Very true. Again, as I said, a good challenge, but I think, a good challenge for the employees and the companies. We're getting a bunch of very good questions, but one that keeps coming back or keeps repeating has to do with the difference between the speed, if you will, of the private industry versus the government. And I'm going to send this question to all of you guys. The question says, we've seen an accelerated adoption of digital trends that outplays government's capabilities to understand or adopt or regulate this into their roadmap. What are the best joint practices you've seen in public-private initiatives to improve a nation's competitiveness? I don't know if I said that word right. In embracing this digitalization, what would you say are some of the things that the government should consider when looking at this digital transformation? Any one of you guys? Let's start with Rene.
Thanks. So yeah, I think that's definitely a challenge that we see not only in Costa Rica, but everywhere. And I think it's inherent of the way that governments work. One thing that I've experienced here in Costa Rica is that Costa Rica has the advantage of having an organization like CINDE that helps connect a lot of the international companies that are based here in Costa Rica with the government. So, for example, one of the ways that many of the companies that are part of that work closely with CINDE is that we have a lot of feedback for the government in terms of the type of resources that we need, the type of trends that we see from a technology standpoint, and the requirements in education and other areas where then CINDE can help work that through, for example, the Ministry of Education or other areas within the government to help create more people and educate them in that. So CINDE has been key in supporting many of the companies that work here in having the government update a lot of the education programs that they have from a technology standpoint, from the different skills from English, from all of that. So that's one way, at least in how governments can work with the private sector to update and create more opportunities for employment for the people.
Thank you, Rene. Eric, what would you add to that response?
I think Rene summarized it very well. I feel that, and again, this is not an isolated practice that CINDE does. It's a long-lasting effort, and I think that makes a difference. I think that it's probably a quota of responsibility also on the private sector to really be more vocal, to become, to express our needs more often. There are things that are just moving so slow, like the regulations around labor laws that would help us have the 4x3 or the 4x10 scheduling. And these type of things would really help us adhere to the rapid pace that we're moving in our sectors. So how can we, I wouldn't say, other than CINDE, honestly, and very humbly have to say, I have not seen any other best practice, but I think that it's a responsibility to really keep pushing and really trying to help the country overcome its obstacles to ensure that people are thinking more around these STEM areas when it comes to the academia and really forming those leaders of the future.
Thank you, Eric. And Fabricio, and maybe we can close with you. And along the lines, what Eric was saying in the question, Carlos says, how can the private sector support governments to accelerate this transformation?
Thanks. And the way we look at this, it's not about governments or private sector. It's about all together, right? How we are all together playing our role in the society. We gotta be together, because the challenge is more than just the government. We can't leave the government alone. We can't leave the private sector alone. But how we're closing the gaps and making sure that we are all working towards the same goals, towards the same society, towards the country that we want to build ourselves. We can't wait for a government to come and do what we are expecting them to do, and the government can't wait for a private sector to come and do what they're supposed to do. We all gotta be on this one together. For me, it's not about one or the other, but how we are working closely to close any gap. And in Costa Rica, for example, we do this exactly the same from academic standpoint, leveraging our expertise, leveraging the markets that we're working on, leveraging the markets that we're working on just to ensure that everyone is working together. At the same time, we're doing the same from a sustainability standpoint.
right? So it's academic, sustainability, it's everywhere, but it's not one or the other one, but it's how we're all doing the work together and playing our role in the different sectors.
Thank you, Fabricio. And again, I wish we could continue because we've been getting so many interesting questions. I think this is a very interesting topic, not only because it involves technology, but at the same time, technology affects us humans and how we need to learn how to live our lives now with technology. Again, I wish we could continue, but we're running short of time. I want to thank all of the speakers. It was a stellar conversation. I learned a great deal. I took a bunch of notes. I hope everyone else did too. I don't want to close the Coffee Talk without inviting all of you to the upcoming Coffee Talk, which is going to be held next month and is going to be focused on the fintech industry, the fintech trends, shaping opportunities for the digital payments industry. And we're going to be talking about very interesting and disruptive technologies like cryptocurrency and many others. So please don't miss this very interesting talk. I hope I see you, all of you. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, but especially for Fabricio, Eric, and Renee. It was a pleasure to have this talk with you guys. Thank you so much.